Kristen Oaks-White.
And I'm Avery Davidson. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, the only TV show bringing Louisiana farmers and consumers together each week.
Well, for a long time, Rayville has been known as the white gold capital of the South, of course referring to the cotton fields that cover that area.
To have that title takes a lot of people to supply the farmers of that region with the cotton seed they need to plant their crops. This week, TWILA's Karl Wiggers introduces us to one of those men who had a lot to overcome, but with help, made it back to the field this season.
Matt Branch grew up in a family of farmers. That's why he loves his job in the same industry today. He says it's the people in agriculture that make him feel right at home.
And then I also enjoy just, watching nature at work, watching crops grow and trying to understand, what we did right, what we did wrong. And, there's always room for improvement in agriculture every year. And that's some of the things that I just really enjoy about this industry.
Riding through cotton fields like this is a totally normal day for Branch during cotton harvest. However, when Matt steps out of his truck, you learn that there's something that stands out. This titanium prosthetic leg is the result of a terrible duck hunting accident that happened just 10 months ago in Mississippi.
As we were standing around packing up our gear and everything, I'd put my gun down in the back of the four-wheeler, or Polaris Ranger is actually what it was, and I'd left a shell in the chamber. It was my fault. I completely forgot to unload it, that morning. And when we were loading up, the dog jumped up in the back of the Ranger, and it couldn't have been another second or two after he jumped in there that the gun went off. And we didn't immediately realize a gun went off. It didn't sound like a gunshot, it sounded more like a firework. And I just remember looking down and seeing a big hole in the bed of the Ranger, and that hole was directly next to my left leg. And immediately I realized what had happened, that I had been shot. I didn't know how bad it was because I didn't feel it, to start with. And I went to take a step back to get a better look, and my leg didn't move.
Branch's hunting buddies snapped into action, taking him to the highway to wait on the ambulance. He was then rushed to a hospital in Jackson, Mississippi, where doctors fought to keep him alive.
They did everything they could to save my life. Obviously, they had to take my left leg at the hip in order to do that, which was difficult to process, but I'm just glad I'm here today and able to be alive and share my story with people.
While Branch did lose his left leg, they didn't take his sense of humor.
You don't see this every day.
Driving Branch throughout his recovery was his will to compete like he did playing football, and his young son waiting for him at home.
He was probably 1.5 at the time the accident happened. I didn't want my mistake to hold him back for his life, so I wanted to make sure that I could do everything in my power to get my strength up so we could go and do things that, I had always imagined us doing.
With that why, Matt got to work recovering and learning to walk again on this new leg. After 53 days in the hospital and rehab, he came home on February 22nd. Matt was back working full-time on April 10th, less than 4 months after the accident that nearly ended his life.
That to me has been the biggest takeaway from all this, just a better understanding of what's important in this life. And, being able to act on that and really, show the people that I care about that I love them.
Branch now volunteers as a certified peer visitor with the Amputee Coalition, where he helps other amputees through the difficult journey of recovery. As far as duck hunting goes, he may not be down in a pit blind anytime soon, but he does plan to be back out in the field this season enjoying his favorite hobby. And you guys, one of the cool aspects of his whole story, which we've seen kind of lived out on Southern farming. I remember when it happened, everybody just kind of were sharing his story, they were sharing the GoFundMe, and seeing the way that the ag community came together, and he was blown away by it. And he wasn't surprised by it, but he was just overwhelmed with, gratitude towards the ag community doing what farmers do. I mean, that's just, they come and they help their own, they help, anybody that can be, and it was a cool aspect of this story.
What I thought was interesting and really kind of grabbed me was it happened on December 28th. He was in a coma for 12 days,
12
right?
days.
So that means he missed New Year's. He was out one year and woke up the next. I mean, that's just kind of significant when you think of it that way.
He was in an induced coma for 12 days. He had 13 surgeries. He got 320 units of blood. You know, and
So he's lucky to be alive.
He's very lucky to be alive, and he fully acknowledges that. You know, he says he's got a whole new perspective on, you know, things that are important. I mean, as I'm sure anyone would, the things that are important, the people that are important, and it's pretty interesting. And I was very very happy, and I came away from just spending the day with him with a new perspective of like, man, life is very fragile, and it's pretty interesting.
Well, you didn't talk about this in the story, I don't think.
No.
But you told me, you said, so he's a cottonseed salesman, he's a duck hunter, or he was.
He still is.
Okay, he sticks with it. And then he's one other thing.
He is also a former LSU football player. He was a 4-year
That's kind of a big
scholarship
deal.
athlete. Yeah, he's
Wow.
6'6". He's a big fella, and now he's got, you know, one of the longest, probably titanium legs out there.
Wow.
Because it was amputated right at the hip. So I mean, that's a lot of titanium on his from his hip down.
But we're going to be learning a lot about that in the Louisiana Farm Life
will.
podcast,
Yes,
right?
yes. Of course, I had to sit down. You know, I'm a podcast guy.
Yeah.
So I had to sit down with him and, you know, get more details, because there's only so much you can get into a 3-minute story. So I got some really great, you know, interview with him, you know, where he tells way more detail about the story.
And stay tuned to our podcast because we'll talk about it all
We
later.
We'll tell you all about it in the TWILA after show too.
All right, thank you very much, Karl Wiggers.